It is the height of folly to expect the incarnation of a new and greater concept of self to come about by natural evolutionary process. What Neville means here is that he's suggesting that most people live their life by natural evolutionary process, meaning they're just living their lives day to day, week to week, month to month, and just allowing their lives to unfold through this natural evolutionary process. And what he's saying is that it's the height of folly, it's foolishness to expect the incarnation of a new and greater concept of self. So if you really want to become greater than that which you are currently, it is complete and utter foolishness just to expect that's going to happen by just living your life, going about your business, living your life day to day, week to week, month to month. Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. And in this video, we are going to take a close look at Neville Goddard's Power of Awareness, Chapter 3, which is called The Power of Assumption. This is the chapter where Neville Goddard really spells out in detail his law of assumption that he really talks about throughout all of his work. Now, before we get into the chapter, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and then comment down below this video, just letting me know I subscribed so that I can shout you out and reply to you and acknowledge you for subscribing to the channel. Now, like I said, this is the chapter in which Neville Goddard spells out in complete detail his law of assumption. And at the end of this chapter, I'm going to give you a powerful exercise that you can use today to begin to put the law of assumption into practice for you in your life, working towards a very specific and important goal that you have right now. So without further ado, let's get into the chapter right here. This is Chapter 3, Power of Assumption, from Neville Goddard's book, The Power of Awareness. He starts by saying, man's chief delusion is his conviction that there are causes other than his own state of consciousness. All that befalls a man, all that is done by him, all that comes from him, happens as a result of his state of consciousness. A man's consciousness is all that he thinks and desires and loves, all that he believes is true and consents to. That is why a change of consciousness is necessary before you can change your outer world. He uses a great example here straight from nature. He says, rain falls as a result of a change in the temperature in the higher regions of the atmosphere. So, in like manner, a change of circumstance happens as a result of a change in your state of consciousness. To be transformed, the whole basis of your thoughts must change. But your thoughts cannot change unless you have new ideas, for you think from your ideas. All transformation begins with an intense, burning desire to be transformed. This is a really important point, and if you study the work of some of the greatest authors on this subject throughout all of history, without question, this is one specific area that every single one of them agrees on, whether that's Napoleon Hill or Wallace Wattles or James Allen. Every single one of the greats talks about the importance of burning desire to change. And Neville says it in Chapter 3, Power of Awareness. All transformation begins with an intense, burning desire to be transformed. The first step in the renewing of the mind is desire. You must want to be different and intend to be before you can change yourself. Then you must make your future dream a present fact. I love that statement. You must make your future dream present fact. As we keep going here, I want you to start to think about the future dream that you're holding right now that you want to start making your present fact. What is that dream? Start to bring that into your awareness right now as we continue on in this chapter. He continues, you do this by assuming the feeling of your wish fulfilled, which is the law of assumption. The law of assumption is simply assuming the feeling of your wish fulfilled, and by doing so, you realize your desires, you realize those dreams. He continues on, by desiring to be other than what you are, you can create an ideal of the person you want to be and assume that you already are that person. If this assumption is persisted in until it becomes your dominant feeling, the attainment of your ideal is inevitable. The ideal you hope to achieve is always ready for an incarnation, but unless you yourself offer it human parentage, it is incapable of birth. Therefore, your attitude should be one in which, having desired to express a higher state, You alone accept the task of incarnating this new and greater value of yourself. In giving birth to your ideal, you must bear in mind that the methods of mental and spiritual knowledge are entirely different. Neville talks about this a lot, the difference between mental and spiritual knowledge, and he explains it here in just a second. He says, this is a point that is truly understood by probably not more than one person in a million. Just a big statement. Here's his explanation of the difference between mental knowledge and spiritual knowledge. He explains that you know a thing mentally by looking at it from the outside, by comparing it with other things, by analyzing it and defining it, by thinking of it. This is how most of us were taught to learn new things, to understand the world around us for our entire lives, understanding things from a mental or an intellectual perspective. Neville contrasts that, though, and explains that whereas you can know a thing spiritually only by becoming it, only by thinking from it. You must be the thing itself and not merely talk about it or look at it. You must be like the moth in search of his idol, the flame. Another example here straight from nature, which I love. You must be like the moth in search of his idol, the flame, who spurred with true desire, plunging at once into the sacred fire, folded his wings within till he became one color and one substance with the flame. He continues on here, just as the moth, in his desire to know the flame, was willing to destroy himself, so must you, in becoming a new person, be willing to die to your present self. You must be conscious of being healthy if you are to know what health is. You must be conscious of being secure if you are to know what security is. Therefore, to incarnate a new and greater value of yourself, you must assume that you already are what you want to be, and then live by faith in this assumption. If all you took from this entire book, in fact, if all you took from all of Neville's work was this one sentence, and you studied it and you read it over and over and over again, you would have 99% of what you need from Neville's teachings. You must assume that you already are what you want to be, and then live by faith in this assumption, which is not yet incarnate in the body of your life, in confidence that this new value or state of consciousness will become incarnated through your absolute fidelity to the assumption that you are that which you desire to be. This is what wholeness means, what integrity means. They mean the submission of the whole self to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, in certainty that the new state of consciousness is the renewing of mind which transforms. There is no order in nature corresponding to this willing submission of the self to the ideal beyond the self. Therefore, it is the height of folly to expect the incarnation of a new and greater concept of self to come about by natural evolutionary process. What Neville means here is that he's suggesting that most people live their life by natural evolutionary process, meaning they're just living their lives day to day, week to week, month to month, and just allowing their lives to unfold through this natural evolutionary process. And what he's saying is that it's the height of folly, it's foolishness to expect the incarnation of a new and greater concept of self. So if you really want to become greater than that which you are currently, it is complete and utter foolishness just to expect that's going to happen by just living your life, going about your business, living your life day to day, week to week, month to month. He continues on. That which requires a state of consciousness to produce its effect obviously cannot be affected without such a state of consciousness. And in your ability to assume the feeling of a greater life, to assume a new concept of yourself, you possess what the rest of nature does not possess. So he's talking about the weather. He pulls that example, right? The moth in search of the flame. Neville's constantly pulling these examples from nature. And then he states right here that there's one thing that you possess and that I possess, and that every other human being on the planet possesses that the rest of nature does not. And that is imagination, the instrument by which you create your world. If you're thinking about this law of assumption, assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled, if you simply ask the question, how do you do that? What's the tool that I'm going to use that's going to allow me to do this? The answer is simple, and it can be distilled down to a single word, and that is imagination, the human imagination. Neville explains that your imagination is the instrument, the means whereby your redemption from slavery, sickness, and poverty is effected. If you refuse to assume the responsibility of the incarnation of a new and higher concept of yourself, then you reject the means, the only means whereby your redemption, that is, the attainment of your ideal, can be effected. Imagination is the only redemptive power in the universe. However, your nature is such that it is optional to you whether you remain in your present concept of yourself, a hungry being longing for freedom, health, and security, or choose to become the instrument of your own redemption, imagining yourself as that which you want to be, and thereby satisfying your hunger and redeeming yourself. I love that Neville here at the end of this chapter is presenting a choice. He's saying, look, you can choose if you'd like to stay exactly as you are. You don't need to apply this. Everything that I'm sharing here, everything I'm teaching, he's saying you don't have to do this. You can choose to stay exactly as you are. If you want to stay in your current circumstances, your current state, your current situation, your current self-image, you can do that. That's your choice. However, if you want to achieve a new concept of yourself, a greater value of who you are, and achieve new goals and realize new desires and fulfill dreams that you're holding on to, this is what is required. And it's the only thing we need to focus on, our consciousness, assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. So as promised, I want to give you an assignment. I want to give you an exercise that you can immediately begin to apply today to start putting the law of assumption into use. I can tell you that the first time I saw someone in my life apply this was way back in the year 1997. And I was 10 years old at the time. And my mother was a middle school music teacher. And her specialty in the world of music teaching in middle school was conducting choirs. She was a phenomenal choir conductor. And she still is a phenomenal choir conductor. But in that year, 1997, there was a professional production of the musical Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. And he was touring into our home city, which was Toronto. And my mother wanted to put together a choir, children's choir, to audition and possibly get selected to be on stage in that production, starring Donny Osmond, the one and only Donny Osmond, at the Professional Theatre in Toronto. And this was a long shot because, as you can imagine, they went and auditioned school choirs from all over the province, a province of 10, 11 million people probably at the time. We're talking thousands and thousands of schools. But I saw my mother latch onto this goal, this desire that she had to put this group of kids together and to get into this production. And lucky enough for me, she put me in her choir, even though I didn't go to her school. I went to a different school. I think she knew from the very beginning that if she was going to do this, she was going to be successful, and that the choir of young people that she put together was absolutely going to get selected to be on stage alongside Donny Osmond in Toronto Professional Theatre, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. And sure enough, it all came true. But I watched my mother work steadfastly towards this goal. And she had the vision, and she knew it was going to happen. She knew it was going to happen. Sure enough, out of hundreds and hundreds of schools that ended up applying, we were one of 4 of the choirs that were selected to be in that production. And what's really cool is that in the very beginning of that production, the narrator says the following words. Listen very carefully. She says, "Some folks dream of the wonders they'll do before their time on this planet is through. Some just don't have anything planned. They hide their hopes and their heads in the sand." This is interesting. It reminds me of what Neville was saying at the end of chapter 3, that there's 2 choices that you have, that you can be someone who is dreaming of the wonders that you're going to achieve in your life, or you can be the person that's just living life by the natural evolutionary process, day to day, just expecting that things are going to change or become better, but not really doing anything about it. Again, going back to the lyrics here, she says, "Now I don't say who is wrong, who is right. But if by chance you are here for the night, then all I need is an hour or 2 to tell the tale of a dreamer like you. We all dream a lot. Some are lucky, some are not." And here is where she basically explains the law of assumption. But if you think it, want it, dream it, then it's real. You are what you feel. These lyrics are written by Tim Rice. This is not Neville Goddard, but I look at this line, but if you think it, want it, burning desire, if you think it, want it, and dream it, dream is activating the human imagination. If you think it, want it, and dream it, then it's real. That's the law of assumption. If you think it, want it, dream it, then it's real. And Neville wrote a whole book called Feeling is the Secret. This line right here says, you are what you feel. You are what you feel. If you think it, want it, dream it, then it's real. You are what you feel. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to search back through your life and simply identify one time in your life, one moment in the history of your being alive, where you feel like you applied Neville Goddard's law of assumption. Where in your life have you already done this? Because I promise you, regardless of the ups, the downs, the challenges that you face, the roadblocks that you've encountered throughout your life, I promise that there's been at least one time in your life where you have beautifully already applied this. You know exactly how to apply Neville's law of assumption already. You've done it before, whether that's in an area of your health, your physical fitness, your business life, you're getting a job that you wanted, creating a relationship that you wanted to create. You've done this before. You've done this before. So my question is, where have you already done this? Where have you applied the law of assumption? So that's it for this video, chapter 3 of Power of Awareness. Keep an eye out for the next one. We'll study chapter 4 of Power of Awareness, which is all about desire. I'll see you in the next video.